Jotun is a fantasy action game from Thunder Lotus Games set in Norse mythology. It features a hand-drawn art style and spans across a number of areas, all sourced from Norse mythology, from a giant forge to a frozen lake to the roots and the branches of the Yggdrasil itself. Your character is Thora, and after drowning in a storm as not considered to be an honourable enough death, is tasked by the gods to defeat the Jotun in 5 separate realms. To do this, you'll need to trek through 2 lands in each realm, each land containing a rune that you'll need to unlock the door to that realm's Jotun, who you can then go in and battle. Each of the realms has a different theme: ice, fire, nature, shit like that, and each of the different lands in those realms will have different challenges. Some might have you traverse a frozen lake while dodging a gigantic lake monster, others will have you hunt around while being stalked by a giant eagle, and some will just throw incomprehensible amounts of enemies at you. Each land basically functions like a themed challenge run, and it really helps to keep the gameplay fresh and exciting. This is needed because with only 3 attacks to her name, Thora needs some fighting help from the secondary attacks. These are given to her at shrines located in each of the lands. Each shrine is to a different god, granting a different power. Thor's will grant an enhanced overhead attack with a lightning hammer, Freya grants enhanced speed, allowing more attacks, Loki's ability leaves a duplicate of the player and the enemies will attack and flock to it only for it to explode for massive damage, and so on and so forth. These help enhance the combat and give you a fighting chance at the boss fights. On the game itself, the first thing that you'll notice was the artwork. I said before that it was hand drawn, but it really has to be seen to be believed. The main character is rendered super smoothly, and the enemies are all exceptionally well drawn. I love the touch of leaving in some of the brushstrokes. It's odd, but I'd have thought leaving these in, and therefore making it obvious that it's a hand-drawn sprite, would sour the graphics and leave a nasty taste behind, but they don't. They really make the sprites pop. But the real standouts are the bosses. Every single one is meticulously drawn and detailed, and they look unbelievable. I mean, come on, just look at it. It's wonderful. So with the first-rate artwork, you'll be pleased to know that the gameplay is first-rate as well. The limited amount of attacks don't restrict the gameplay, and all the secondary abilities don't overbalance it either. They're very useful and you'll need them all, but they're not overpowered. A lot of thought has gone into fine-tuning them. But where the combat really comes into its own, and this game as well, is with the boss fights. They're all fantastic. Many require some thought to get through, but they're all really challenging without taking the piss. It's fairly possible to get through each one on your first go if you're a bit skilled and have some patience. Also, just look at the artwork. I'm going to keep going on about this because I seriously, I'd say maybe only Cuphead is probably something that looks this good. I mean, they're gorgeous. Also, the bosses are proper obstacles to get over and not rocks just to crash the flow of the game up against. They're a true achievement, and they really should be ripped off by every adventure game henceforth. Another thing that stands out here is the absolutely superb sounds, music and voice acting. The lead actress does a truly fantastic job.
Sem kona og yngra systkinið óx ég út grasi í skugga bróður míns. Æviskeið mitt var markað löngun minni til að standa undir nafni mínu og gera föður minn stoltan af mér. Með hverjum mánuðinum sem ég eyddi á sjó að berjast í nafni Óðins, sannaði ég mig aftur og aftur. Ég vann mér fljótt inn virðingu.
The amount of feeling and emotion she puts into retelling her own death is brilliant. The whole cast are spot on, and they really add a huge sense of weight to the world and make it feel real despite the fact that it's set in a Norse mythological afterlife. So the game looks great and plays just as good, and has a great storyline and it's competently acted. It sounds perfect then, yeah? Not exactly. There are some bones of contention here. One is its short length. With such a wealth of lore and such a perfect formula for conveying the story, the 4 hours at most now, playtime is a bit of a letdown. Another gripe is that the majority of those 4 hours will be spent exploring some really empty landscapes. Most of the lands don't have any enemies in them and will use their environmental hazards to try and kill you off. This means that the general tone of Jotun is quite inconsistent. The game will oscillate between super tense exciting fights and loads of tedious running around an empty bleak landscape with nothing to interact with other than some interesting panorama scenes. It's the sheer emptiness of a lot of the lands that was actually quite surprising to me. The lands with no enemies either have environmental hazards to dodge, like lava jets or an icy cold breeze, or an invincible enemy that'll hunt you down throughout the level. These could be equal parts tense and annoying, so much so that the Valhalla edition has a Valhalla mode, which strips out a lot of these sections in favour of huge runs of enemies, which might be more in line with a lot of players' sensibilities. Look, I'm all in favour of a game dev listening to feedback and adjusting the game accordingly, but when you create an entire mode that essentially overwrites huge tracts of the original game, that's a sure sign you may have done it wrong in the first place. Anyway, to finish up, Jotun is a smashing little game, and is sure to tickle all but the most pointless of game fans. There's a little something here for everybody. You fan of a good story? Check. Fans of mythology? Check. Fans of a good action-adventure game? Check. Want a female protagonist that is actually fully written and well acted? Double check and mate, my friend. Yes, it's short and inconsistent, but the parts that matter are truly excellent, and you can never spend too long looking at games that look this fucking good. Jotun, get it when you can, wherever you can. You'll not be disappointed.